Good evening, everyone. Okay, so let's start today's session, and please do let me know if I'm audible. Let me cross check also. Okay, it's okay now. So I think not audible. You can start the session. Okay. So today, as you know, today's session is for environmental engineering, and in last session also I covered some of the questions. As you know, in the session they were mixed on the similar lines. Today also I'm going to cover a few mixed questions from the two topics of environmental engineering, and okay. So and those two topics basically, these are those two topics. Topic number 8 and topic number 9. That is in your syllabus. Basically, it is the global and regional environmental issues. This is one. I think this is the topic number 8, and 9 topic is environmental management and sustainable development. This is the topic number 9, and I have already individually discussed under this 4 to 5 series some of the questions from these topics, right? So okay, so let's go ahead and start discussing some of the questions from this particular section. Okay, here's the question. Just go through it and try to answer. Then I'm going to explain it. Just take your 1 minute or so. Maximum 1 minute. You should not take more than that. Increasing amount of carbon dioxide in the air is slowly raising the temperature of the atmosphere because it absorbs. So basically, you have to give the reason. Hello, Ayush. Good evening. So just try to attempt it. So what could be the possible reason? Okay. Okay, I hope you may have read it now, till now. So let me just explain it now. As you know, we are saying that global warming or that overall temperature of the earth is increasing. Climate change issue that we are talking about, that is because of the mainly because of the carbon dioxide which is getting released into the atmosphere. So as you know, why we say that is a greenhouse gas, you say that okay, it absorbs the radiations, but what kind of radiations it absorbs, that is the question. Basically, you just have a look over here. So basically, other option that you see over here, they looks like, okay, first option, obviously you can reject the first option. It is not that carbon dioxide is going to absorb, so that is why it is, so this is not the correct option. So we know that it basically absorbs the radiation. But what kind of radiations? Ultraviolet part of the solar radiations. I think last time also I discussed one question with you where I told you that the total amount of different types of radiations that we receive from the sun, and ultraviolet radiations, they are the smallest in proportion, roughly 7% or so. And the major portion of ultraviolet is already absorbed by the ozone. So no question of ozone, right? So it is not because that it absorbs the ultraviolet part of the solar radiation. Or does it absorb all the solar radiations? That is the question. And third one is the infrared part of the solar radiation. So I think I need to give you the explanation which you may be knowing. So this part I already discussed. This diagram I had already shown you. But in this part, if you remember, I told you one is that okay, you are having visible light 44% coming from sun, 7% ultraviolet, and then 49% roughly it is coming in the form of infrared. Now in infrared also, in solar, you are having high wavelength infrared radiations, we call them far infrared, and short wavelength infrared radiations, we call them near infrared radiation. This is how you know that this is the total energy that you receive on the surface of the earth in the form of radiations. But you know, this is the thing that you already know, right? In physics also you may have studied and all that, or maybe like general knowledge you are already having now, that when the body is at a high temperature, it emits what? It emits radiations of shorter wavelength and high frequency. So same is the situation with the solar radiation that we receive. Mostly we are having the high frequency and low wavelength radiations, right? Only it is the infrared part, that is small proportion of infrared, that is the longer wavelength. Now, and as you know, when we get the heat from the sun on the earth, then obviously earth also gets heated up. Now when earth heats up compared to, if you see from the sun, its temperature is very low, and as the sun, earth emits the radiations, those radiations are in the form of high wavelength infrared radiations, right? So it is the re-radiated part of the high wavelength infrared radiations which carry less amount of energy, which is blocked by these greenhouse gases which are enveloping the atmosphere, or let's say around the earth, which is present over there, right? And this also, I hope you may be having understanding. The solar radiation, this is, for example, we say that these gases act as a greenhouse, creates a greenhouse effect, or they act like a greenhouse. What is the meaning of, like you are having a glass greenhouse? If you make that house made up of entirely of glass, then you're having the shorter wavelength infrared radiation, this which will be reflected back, because they don't have sufficient energy, they will be reflected back, they cannot enter. What can enter? Either visible light, or maybe the shorter this is, I think, solar shorter wavelength infrared radiations, and this is the visible light which can enter. Now when the inside earth's surface is heated up, it releases the what? Visible light, because shorter wavelength, it will penetrate and come back again from that particular wall of that glass. But the re-radiated infrared radiations of higher wavelength, when they come out, it is blocked. Like they were blocked over here when they were coming from the sun. Now they are getting blocked by this glass wall over here, and therefore they will remain inside this way, and all that. So overall temperature goes up. Same is the situation with the the greenhouse gases which are over there surrounding the Earth atmosphere. Re-radiated long wave radiations, infrared radiations, basically they are reflected back over here. So this way our atmosphere overall temperature increases as we have more amount of greenhouse gases into the environment, and particularly carbon dioxide, which is we are releasing in a huge amount. So now the most appropriate answer you are going to have is the infrared part of the solar radiation, basically that is basically responsive, that is absorbed by the carbon dioxide, and that is why we say this is the leading to the this global warming or climate change. Okay, now let's go to the same thing. I think this shows the greenhouse effect we have discussed earlier. Now let's go to this question. Now just go through it, take you 1 minute. It says the concept of carbon credit originated from which one of the following? As you know, these are some of the meetings that took place at international level to deal with the climate change, right? So out of that, you're having okay, some of them are related to climate change, some are related to other summits are also mentioned over here. So our summit, so definitely when we talk about the carbon credit, when you think of like carbon credit, then obviously you need to think in terms of carbon dioxide, right? So carbon credit concept, I hope you may be knowing. If you're not knowing, then obviously we took some steps in order to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide released into the environment. That is how the things are going on, that every country is trying its best to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide. Now this basically concept originated, if I make you recall, which was the first meeting where concrete targets were given. So you're having that was what, after the Rio Earth Summit, right? 1992, you had the Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro. After that, you had the Kyoto Protocol. So in Kyoto Protocol, you were given the concrete targets. Concrete targets meant some of the countries, particularly which one? Developed countries were given the targets to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide release into the or greenhouse gas release into the environment. Uski reduction ke liye aapko target diya gaya ki by what amount you have to reduce. Now there was a mechanism that was created, how they will take the step. I think in one of the questions I discussed earlier with you, 3 flexibility mechanisms were created, or 3 different ways were created by which these countries can reduce that release of carbon dioxide into the environment. अब 2-3 तरीके सिंपल थे. एक ये था कि क्योंकि it had to be done by the developed countries only, which were responsible for the which were majorly responsible for the carbon dioxide release into the environment. तो उन्हीं को टारगेट दिए गए. तो एक तो तरीका ये था कि आप by yourself improve the technology improve करो. टेक्नोलॉजी improve होगी तो release of amount of carbon dioxide जो है वो environment में कम होगा. That is one way. The other way is you develop the technology and you implement, let us say, at some other country, let us say either it is a developing country or maybe in some other industrialized country, developed country, where the cost of reduction is less. So ये दो next two steps हैं. ये एक step ये था कि आपका developer to developed and developer to developing. What does that mean? कि you invest in those countries, in other developed countries, industrialized countries, जहां पर cost of reduction of that carbon dioxide is less. Release of carbon dioxide, cost of reduction in the carbon dioxide release is less, something that way. And the other was you invest in the somewhere in the, you help some developing country in reducing the carbon dioxide release, technology transfer करो या something that way. So these were other mechanism. अब ये implement कैसे करना था, तो कोई तो mechanism होना चाहिए. तो उसके लिए the concept developed was of carbon credit. Basically one carbon credit जो है that was is equal to 1000 carbon dioxide, 1000 tons of carbon dioxide. I hope I'm correct. Let me just it is one carbon credit is equal to 1 ton. Oh, sorry, 1000 ton नहीं, 1000 ton बहुत ज़्यादा term हो गया. 1000 ton of carbon dioxide it was. So basically one जो carbon credit था, that was given the name to the 1 ton of the carbon dioxide. Now it means कि कोई भी country, let us say, if they think of reducing the release of the carbon dioxide, if they are able to reduce by an amount of 1 ton of carbon dioxide, then we will say they have invested in that. क्योंकि कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड रिलीज कम कैसे होगा, या तो न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी में आप इन्वेस्ट करोगे, तो पैसा लगाया आपने. सो द कार्बन क्रेडिट के तरीके से जब हम बात करते हैं, तो ये था कि आइदर यू रिड्यूस बाय योरसेल्फ, अपने एंड पे मैंने किया, इफ आई से दैट आई हैव रिड्यूस्ड द कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड रिलीज इक्विवेलेंट टू 1 ton of carbon dioxide, then I will say I have a credit of 1 carbon credit है. This is one way. The other way, as we explained, let us say we are saying the developing country है या कोई developing developer to develop था एक, so developed to develop, इसमें मैं एक डिस्कस करता हूँ, develop to develop. Now what happened is targets were given. So let us say ये मैं हंगरी ले लेता हूँ, कोई country हंगरी, and here you are having USA. Now it was Hungary was given a target. Okay, you have to reduce the carbon dioxide release by a certain amount. Let's say 50 का टारगेट दिया, 50 यूनिट्स का टारगेट दे दिया इसको, whereas the USA was given the target of, let us say, 100. Now what happened is in a certain duration of time, okay, so if let us say USA achieved, USA ने इन्वेस्ट किया, मनी इन्वेस्ट किया, टेक्नोलॉजी इन्वेस्ट की, और they were able to get, that means they were able to even exceed the target. So they were able to achieve the units of, let us say, 105 units. Clear? इसका मतलब 5 surplus है. And let us think of the situation where the Hungary was given the target of 50, but they were not able to achieve. They were, let us say, able to achieve only 45. Hypothetically, I am taking the situation. So what option Hungary has? Hungary क्या कर सकता है? जो 5 कार्बन क्रेडिट्स हैं वो कहां से ले सकता है? यूएसए से ले सकता है, बिकॉज सरप्लस है उसके बाद, उसने टारगेट अपना अचीव कर लिया, बट 5 सरप्लस दे आर हैविंग. नाउ क्या यूएसए गोइंग टू गिव हंगरी इन फ्री? क्या फ्री में देगा वो? नो. तो क्या करेगा वो? हर एक कार्बन क्रेडिट के लिए पैसे पे करने पड़ेंगे हंगरी को अपना टारगेट अचीव करने के लिए. सो दिस इज हाउ दिस मैकेनिज्म. तो या तो ये क्या करो, आप खुद के अपने यहां पर इन्वेस्टमेंट कर लो, देयर आल्सो यू हैव टू स्पेंड द मनी, और बाय मेकिंग अ सरप्लस, जो कार्बन क्रेडिट आपने अचीव किए वो दूसरी कंट्री क्या कर सकती है, उसको परचेज कर सकती थी, एंड दैट वे दे वर एबल टू फुलफिल देयर टारगेट्स. सो दैट वे बाय क्रिएटिंग अ मैकेनिज्म ऑफ कार्बन क्रेडिट्स, एंड जो 3 फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी मैकेनिज्म है उनका मेथड यूज करके वी वर एबल टू, they were given the these countries which were given the target, they were able to achieve that target, right? That is how you have to understand the meaning of carbon credit. So basically it is 1 carbon credit is equal to 1 ton of a carbon dioxide, और उसके टर्म में अगर आप सोचते हो then you will be able to understand it. Now one is the term. एक तो टर्म आपको क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए. सेकंड पार्ट जो आपको क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए, that is rest is related to if you have gone through these particular different summits, then it was the Kyoto protocol, फर्स्ट टाइम जहां पर आपको टारगेट दिए गए थे to reduce the carbon dioxide to the developed countries. So that time this concept of carbon credit originated. Okay, so let's now proceed to next one. Go through this question and try to answer. Chinmay, I think you better talk to Gurvinder sir, okay, and discuss with him in detail. He will inform you everything. Just speak to him, okay. And I think the number is already displayed in the, I think, in the website also. You can speak to him. He can guide you very properly, okay. The whole details and related. Okay, so let's go through this question now. The term intended nationally determined contributions is sometimes seen in the news in the concept of किसके concept में हम use करते हैं, and you should also know what is the meaning of intended nationally determined contributions. Okay, so basically, as you know, now this is, if you have gone through basically this greenhouse gas emission and all that, basically this is related to the release of greenhouse gases. Okay, see, capital contributed by capital contributed by the member of countries to establish Asian infrastructure investment bank. And in any case, I cannot discuss in the environment. I cannot discuss about it. You know, about the, this becomes like a current affairs or general studies question. So basically, this intended nationally determined contributions. It seems like, because from the term, if you are not heard of contributions, from there it looks like, okay, it may be something like contribution in the infrastructure and all that, but it's not that way. Basically, as you know, a Kyoto Protocol, as I discussed in last question, targets were given, but many countries didn't never ratified those protocol, never agreed. Particularly the countries like USA, which is you can say which is the most developed country, and they have polluted the environment by the largest amount. So they backed out. They said, okay, we will not abide by whatever we have agreed earlier. And same happened with the Canada also at later stage. Earlier they signed, and then later stage they withdraw. So it means major country, they were not ready. Then later on, these meetings continued, and now the most recent meeting that you can talk about the targets, in terms of targets, there was a Paris climate deal that happened in 2015, very recent you can say. So 2015 Paris climate deal में क्या किया गया? Kyoto Protocol में you are having only the developed countries, industrialized countries. But अब क्या किया गया कि developing countries को भी they were brought together. आओ आप भी चलो, because आप भी pollute कर रहे हो. India is polluting, China is polluting, which are the major you can say big countries, developing countries. So other countries also. So Paris climate deal में these countries were also brought, they were brought in, taken into board, and decided कि सारी countries मिलके क्या करें, effort करें in order to reduce the release of carbon dioxide into the environment or greenhouse gases into the environment, so that we can restrict the rise in temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrialized levels, right? So almost 70, 50 or 1800 का period जो है, उसके comparison में we should not allow the increase of in temperature on an average even above the, we have to restrict it well below 2 degrees Celsius, but at the best we cannot allow it to go, मतलब हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि 1.5 से नीचे ही रहे. 2 डिग्री सेल्सियस तक राइज हो गया, that is going to have a catastrophic impacts on the global scale पे होंगे. तो इसलिए वो टारगेट अचीव करने के लिए ऑल द कंट्रीज एग्रीड, इंडिया आल्सो एग्रीड एंड ऑल दैट. बट वहां पर टर्म एक कॉइन किया गया कि इंस्टेड ऑफ गिविंग यू द सेपरेट टारगेट्स, कि हम आपको टारगेट दें, यू बाय योरसेल्फ प्रपोज, आप खुद प्रपोज करो कि ये है, दिस इज व्हाट आई कैन डू एंड दिस इज द पीरियड, बाय कीपिंग इन माइंड दैट वी हैव टू रिस्ट्रिक्ट द टेंपरेचर बाय दिस मच अमाउंट. तो आप अपने कुछ एम्बिशियस टारगेट दो कि दिस बाय दिस अमाउंट, sorry, this year I have to reduce by carbon dioxide release by this much amount, right? तो ये कौन डिटरमिन करेगा? You will determine, each country will determine those target by themselves, but they must be ambitious enough. ऐसा नहीं है कुछ भी लेके जाके बता दिया कि हाँ ये मैंने करना है, which seems to be वो serious नहीं लगे, ऐसा नहीं है. But keeping in the target in mind, so you will determine intended nationally determined contribution, कि नेशनली आप कितना कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हो, सो दैट जो हमने टारगेट सेट किया उससे नीचे रहे. तो हर एक कंट्री ने फिर क्या करेगी, टारगेट सेट किए, एंड दे हैव प्रपोज्ड दिस इज व्हाट आई वांट टू अचीव बाय इन दीस इयर्स, एंड फिर हर 5 साल बाद जो है उसका रिव्यू होगा कि हैव यू बीन एबल टू अचीव दैट, राइट? एंड व्हेन यू विल गिव, लेट्स से यू हैव अचीव्ड, नाउ यू वांट टू सेट द टारगेट फॉर नेक्स्ट 5 इयर्स. तो इन दैट केस द टारगेट फॉर नेक्स्ट 5 इयर्स अगेन should be more ambitious than the previous one. जितना हमने पिछली बार किया था उससे और ambitious होने चाहिए. So those term, that term has been used, उसको नाम देते हैं हम intended nationally determined contribution, कि nationally आपने determine किया कितना contribute कर सकते हो towards the efforts to restrict that change in temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. This is how the scheme of things is. वैसे that is why इसे इंडिया ने भी अपने India has also given its intended nationally determined contributions, like India is giving a lot of push to the, as you know, solar energy के लिए दे रहा है. And right, earlier अगर आप जाएं तो शुरू 2010 में जब हमने टारगेट सेट किया था, it was 20 megawatt like gigawatt only, right, that we wanted to achieve by 2022. मतलब नेक्स्ट ईयर तक जो हमने केवल 20 गीगावाट का टारगेट रखा. बट आफ्टर दैट पेरिस क्लाइमेट डील भी हुई एंड ऑल दैट, देन वी रेज दैट टारगेट. नाउ आज की डेट में यू नो वी आर हैविंग ए 100 गीगावाट, राइट. सो 1 लाख मेगावाट का टारगेट है टू जनरेट द इलेक्ट्रिसिटी और पावर फ्रॉम द रिन्यूएबल सोर्सेज. सो दैट इज हाउ यू कैन जस्ट थिंक ऑफ कि these were the steps taken and all that. So it means this basically जो हम बात करते हैं intended nationally determined contribution is plan of action. Not where is that? Let me just read them one by one. Plan of action outlined by countries of the world to combat climate change. So basically it is related to climate change or reduction with respect to the reduction in the release of greenhouse gases. Right? Okay, so that is how you have to say this. Okay, so D is going to be the correct option. So let's now move on to the next one. Just go through this question. Which are the following are the sources of methane release to the environment? You know, methane is a very potent, greenhouse gas, more dangerous than carbon dioxide, but it is released in less quantity. So that is why we are not that much concerned as compared to carbon dioxide, but definitely is a very potent gas. So now कहां से रिलीज होती है? See, मीथेन का रिलीज आपने देखना है जहां पर आपके फॉसिल फ्यूल की जनरेशन ज्यादा हो रही है. In those locations where you are having the fossil fuel, you are going to find the methane also, right? For example, processing and extraction of natural gas. Obviously जहां पर आपका नेचुरल गैस होगा, नेचुरल गैस में भी आपको पता है नेचुरल गैस you are having small amount of proportion also. बाकी जो नेचुरल गैस में आपका बाकी गैसेस अगर सिग्निफिकेंट है तो मीथेन इज आल्सो वन कंपोनेंट ऑफ दैट इन स्मॉल अमाउंट. सो नेचुरल गैस तो आपका रहेगा, इसमें से मीथेन रिलीज होती है. आपको डाउट आएगा लीकिंग ऑफ एयर कंडीशंस एंड फर्मेंटेशन रूमिनेंट्स. सी, रूमिनेंट्स बेसिकली दीज आर द कैटल्स. बेसिकली जब वो च्यूइंग एक्टिविटी करते हैं, सो ड्यूरिंग द च्यूइंग एक्टिविटी मीथेन इज आल्सो प्रोड्यूस्ड. ओके, मतलब स्टमक में होती है एंड फिर वो बाहर आके बर्पिंग के थ्रू जो इट कम्स आउट. सो फर्मेंटेशन किसकी, जो खाना खाया एंड ऑल दैट, उस प्रोसेस में यू आर गोइंग टू हैव द जनरेशन ऑफ दिस मीथेन. लीकिंग फ्रॉम कार्बन air conditioner, you know, it is a chlorofluorocarbons and hydrochlorofluorocarbons and hydrofluorocarbons etc which are generated, not the methane. And coal mining related activities as extraction, crushing, distribution. मतलब whole supply chain में ड्यूरिंग कोल माइनिंग अगर आप उसको क्रश करोगे तब भी आपका जो है क्या होगा, कार्बन मीथेन रिलीज होगी. एक्सट्रैक्ट करोगे, डिगिंग करोगे, रिमूव करोगे तो यू आर हैविंग दैट फॉसिल फ्यूल, तो वहां से भी होगा. और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, लीकेज एटसेट्रा. डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का मतलब ये हुआ कि जब आप उसको डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हो, कोल को आपका डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हो, तो इन द प्रोसेस दैट आपका लीकेज होगी, उसमें भी आपका जो है वो मीथेन रिलीज होगी. सो बेसिकली दिस इज द सी ऑप्शन इज गोइंग टू द करेक्ट आंसर. So as you correctly mentioned over here, right. Okay, so that is how you have to get this answer. Okay, so C is the correct option. Okay, so let's now move on to the next one. Okay, so this is biodiversity and related to that. So just go through it and try to see if you can closely reach to the answer. Which of the following is not true? You have to find which is not true. Yes, of course. You cannot On the similar lines, you will expect the questions from these two topics. Okay, which of the following statements is not true? Keystone species adversely affect biodiversity. So let me just first tell you, keystone species का एक क्वेश्चन हमने डिस्कस किया था प्रीवियसली ऑल्सो. कीस्टोन स्पीसीज क्या होती है? हमने कहा कि ऐसी स्पीसीज जिसको अगर हम रिमूव कर दें फ्रॉम द इकोसिस्टम और लेट्स से डैमेज हो जाती है, वो एक्सटिंक्ट हो जाती है बिकॉज ऑफ व्हाटएवर द रीजन, तो इट इज गोइंग टू हैव ए ह्यूज इंपैक्ट ऑन दैट इकोसिस्टम. बाकी स्पीसीज जो उसके ऊपर डिपेंडेंट है, दे विल ऑल्सो डाई, दे विल नॉट ऑल्सो, दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू सर्वाइव. उसके लिए हमने एक रिवर्ट आई थिंक एक हाइपोथेसिस हमने, रिवर्ट पॉपर हाइपोथेसिस समथिंग, आई एम फॉरगेटिंग दैट सेंटेंस, बट रिवर्ट पॉपर हाइपोथेसिस समथिंग दैट वे, राइट? सो कीस्टोन स्पीसीज का मतलब की है, ये की स्पीसीज है. अगर उसको हम क्या रिमूव कर देंगे और इफ इट बिकम एक्सटिंक्ट, दैट इज गोइंग टू हैव ए लॉट ऑफ डैमेज ऑन द एनवायरनमेंट. नाउ इसका देखते हैं, कीस्टोन स्पीसीज एडवर्सली अफेक्ट बायोडाइवर्सिटी. I will come to this statement. Before that, see, keystone species is critical for the survival of the other species in its community. Is it correct or not? Of course, it is correct. It is critical for survival of other species because other species are dependent on it. And if it is removed, then obviously they are going to die. They are not going to survive. So, ये statement तो आपकी correct है. Let's see this one. If a keystone species is driven to extinction, it is likely that other species will also disappear. ये और ये same ही है. Whatever I said. Many animals depends upon these keystone species for food and other benefits that aid in their survival. So मुझे लग रहा है तीनों statements जो more or less they are give the overall same meaning दे रही हैं ये. अब आते हैं इसमें जिसमें confusion हो सकता है when you have not gone through them, क्योंकि first देखोगे ना आप, keystone species adversely affect biodiversity. क्योंकि दिमाग में आपके यही आएगा कि keystone species अगर हट जाती है तो वो इकोसिस्टम जो है क्या हो जाएगा, डिस्टेबलाइज हो जाएगा, राइट? बट वो ठीक है, दैट इज ओके, बिकॉज बट क्या कीस्टोन स्पीसीज एडवर्सली अफेक्ट बायोडाइवर्सिटी? क्या वो बायोडाइवर्सिटी को एडवर्सली अफेक्ट करती हैं? ऐसा तो नहीं है. पर अगर उनको डैमेज कर दोगे तब इंफ्लुएंस आएगा आपको बायोडाइवर्सिटी के ऊपर. पर वो दे बाय देमसेल्व्स आर नॉट गोइंग टू अफेक्ट द बायोडाइवर्सिटी. ये सेंटेंस क्या बोल रहा है? कीस्टोन स्पीसीज एडवर्सली अफेक्ट द बायोडाइवर्सिटी. कीस्टोन स्पीसीज बाय देमसेल्व्स डोंट adversely affect the biodiversity. पर उनको रिमूव कर दोगे आप इकोसिस्टम से, then it is going to have effect on biodiversity. So that is why this statement is not correct. But on the face of it, when you go first time through it, then it looks like ये statement क्या है आपकी correct है. But this is not the correct statement. A is not going to rest. I think see the statement if you want to see. A single species that dramatically affects the species diversity is often referred to as key species. Right? मतलब ये क्वांटिटी में जो हो सकता है इकोसिस्टम में कम हो, they may be small in number in the ecosystem, but if they get damaged, then obviously see, it is one whose impact on its community or ecosystem is disproportionately large related to its abundance. कि मतलब जितने ये इकोसिस्टम में हैं उसके कंपैरिजन में उसका इंपैक्ट इकोसिस्टम के ऊपर क्या होता है, बहुत ज्यादा होता है, राइट? इफ सम हार्म इज डन टू दीज स्पीसीज. एक एग्जांपल है यहां कोट किया गया है, इफ यू वांट टू सी, क्लासिक एग्जांपल है ये स्पीसीज का जिसमें स्टारफिश और ये क्या कहते हैं प्रीडेटर है, इज एन एफिशिएंट प्रीडेटर ऑफ मसल. बेसिकली प्रीडेटर मतलब स्टारफिश क्या करती है, इसको इसके ऊपर डिपेंड है, इसको जो है खाती है, ये बोल सकते हो आप. सो प्रीडेट करती है, इसके ऊपर है ये शिकार, सॉरी ये शिकार, ये शिकारी. तो स्टारफिश शिकारी है, दैट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ प्रीडेटर, एंड इसका शिकार कौन है, मसल है. बट अगर क्या करते हैं हम स्टारफिश को क्या करते हैं, डैमेज कर देते हैं. लेट अस से इफ starfish reduces abundance this starfish reduces abundance of muscle. ये क्या करती है, कम करती है, क्योंकि इसके ऊपर फीड करती है. allowing other macro invertebrates to persist, मतलब जो और भी माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिज्म है वो फ्लोरिश कर सकते हैं उस एनवायरनमेंट में. दैट इज मीनिंग ऑफ दिस. इफ द स्टारफिश इज रिमूव्ड फ्रॉम द इकोसिस्टम, अब इसको खत्म कर दो, लेट अस से, देन ये जो मसल है ना, this muscle population explodes uncontrollably. इतनी ज्यादा डेवलप हो जाएंगी ये मसल्स कि ये क्या करेंगे, इसके आसपास जो बाकी स्पीसीज सर्वाइव कर रही थी उनको एग्जिस्ट नहीं करने देगी वहां पर. तो द सर्वाइवल ऑफ द अदर स्पीसीज अराउंड दैट एरिया वाज डिपेंडेंट अपॉन व्हाट? स्टारफिश. क्योंकि स्टारफिश क्या कर रही थी? मसल्स को अनकंट्रोलेबली एक्सपेंड नहीं होने दे रही थी, क्योंकि ये इसके ऊपर फीड कर रही थी. कुछ एक रहती थी, बट अगर ज्यादा होने लगती थी उसको फीड करती थी, तो एक बैलेंस मेंटेन था. बट क्या हुआ? स्टारफिश खत्म हो गई, तो मसल जो है फिर उसको तो मौका मिल गया फैलने का. एक्सप्लोर्स अनकंट्रोलेबली, तो अपने आसपास जो है किसी को नहीं आने देगी. दैट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ दिस. सो दैट इज हाउ यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड द meaning of keystone species. Okay, so I think that is all for today. So in the next session also, maybe in next session, maybe instead of questions, we will come out with the some topics. कुछ एक topics discuss करेंगे, and from these two sections one by one, and on those topics I will be discussing the questions also in that session, right? That is how we will move. Okay, and okay, so that is, hope you enjoyed this session today, and see you in the next session. Till then, bye. Thank you.